Hi, I'm Matt Little. I'm the Director of Counseling and Education at Empowering Awareness.Asia, and I'm a proud sponsor of this podcast.
Yeah, hi, Jason.
Hi, Sai. It's good to see you again.
Nice to meet you after a long time.
Yeah, it's been a while.
So again, thank you very much for giving me opportunity to interview my for my podcast.
Oh, thank you for having me. I'm happy to be here.
So a couple of years ago, I have interviewed you and I have presented you, and I saw the work that you are doing. It was great, and I thought to tell about you and your work, the present work that you are doing, and your future work that you are going to do, and what all you are doing right now. So to my audience for listening this from anywhere on this planet.
Cool, cool. Yeah. So right now, God, since the last time we talked, which was a while ago, I've actually made a couple films. The first one, I think we talked before I worked on Symphony, right? We never talked about Symphony, did
Correct.
we? The horror anthology. So I wrote and directed a segment called Mother Love that was in a horror anthology called Symphony, a Clubhouse horror anthology, and it actually came together on the Clubhouse app. That was a big thing for a little while, and it's still there, but it's kind of faded away a little. Um, but a bunch of us met in a room, and we basically came up with this idea of doing this horror anthology, and then we had scripts in within 2 days. We had the final. We were shooting within a few weeks, and then we had the final film within 7 months from that first room, which was crazy. And we each did our own shorts, and then they were all put together by our producers. And then it got picked up. It got distribution internationally. Even I think it was released in Pakistan in the theaters, which was crazy. It had a limited theatrical run in the United States, and then it's on things like Tubi and like all the streaming platforms here in the U.S. I'm not sure if you guys have that there, but if it's on Tubi there, then it's free to watch. So or it might be. So maybe you and your fans can check it out. And then after that, I did another film called Grizzly Peak, which is a short that stars Gigi Saul Guerrero and Danny Glover, who's in Lethal Weapon and like Predator 2 and like all those amazing films. Spooky Madison, McAllister Bird, and then Haley Bishop, who is also in the horror film Host, which is a really cool kind of found footage Zoom seance horror film that was really, really cool. And Haley also was one of the writer directors in Symphony. She did a segment called Forever Young that was about the horror of turning 30, which was pretty funny and amazing. But with Grizzly Peak, we're currently in our festival run for it. We premiered at Horror Origins in Nevada in the U.S. Like a week ago, and then next up we're going to be having a screening at Monster Fest in Australia. And we're in the Sinister Vision Shorts block on Wednesday, October 8th at 8 p.m. And playing with a bunch of really cool international shorts. And Monster Fest is this really cool. It's one of like Australia's top genre fests, and they're premiering all of these amazing feature horror films, and then they've got all these shorts too. So if anybody's going to be, I think it's in Melbourne, Australia, on October 8th, they should check it out. And I think if they look on Instagram, I think it's Monster Fest AU. They should be able to find all the details for it there, or go to my Instagram. It's just my name, Jason Ragosta, on Instagram, and they'll be able to find all the details there as well, and links to tickets and stuff like that. Yeah. So,
So
Grizzly.
be-
Oh yeah, go
before
ahead.
talking be- before talking more about you and your work, can you please introduce yourself to my new audience, new
For sure.
new viewers?
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. My name's Jason Ragosta. I'm a writer, director, and illustrator and graphic designer, and that has worked in the industry since 1999. Actually, I've been in the industry for a long time now, decades even. I started as a storyboard artist at a stop motion animation studio called Reckless Abandon Studios. before coming out to San Francisco and working first at the Academy of Art. I managed a soundstage for the actress Diane Baker. Before teaching a few classes, I taught Intro to Screenwriting, and I wrote a class for the Academy called Screenplay Breakdown for Camera that was based on a workshop taught by a guy named Jim Pasternak, who was a guy that they bring in to teach new directors at the studios, like the fundamentals of directing. And I got to be his TA at Pixar University, where we taught a crop of directors there. And one of our students was actually Peter Sohn, who I believe directed The Good Dinosaur and a bunch of other films. He directed Partly Cloudy and like all these other things. You know, he was this amazing guy. And when I met him, he was like the basis for the little Boy Scout kid in Up. Like he's a big version of that kid. And we met, and he's like, "Do we just become best friends?" So I was like, "Yeah, sure." But I haven't ever seen him again. But I wish him well, and it's amazing all the stuff he's done since. It's really cool. And then from there, I got to work on the Disney film John Carter for a year as a office production assistant, which was amazing. You know, I had like a card where I could just go over to Pixar because I would drop off documents. We'd have lunch over there and stuff. And that was a dream come true, just to be anywhere near Pixar and to get to work with Andrew Stanton and Ryan Church and all these amazing filmmakers. It was really just an incredible experience where I learned a lot, you know. And then from there, I worked on plenty of like independent films and music videos and all kinds of stuff, and was also doing like behind the scenes featurettes and videos for like the Pre-Visualization Society and for Halon Entertainment and all these other companies. And eventually when COVID hit, I actually went to work remotely for Halon Entertainment, and I was their editorial manager for 3 years. And I got to work on films like John Wick 4 and Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning, and stuff like that. It was really cool. Yeah. And just, you know, and we were working on the pre-visualization side, sometimes post-viz. And then Halon also does virtual art department and animation for games, which is really cool. So we got to work on some games as well, like I think Mortal Kombat 1 and Tiny Tina's Wonderland and a few other ones. Yeah, it was really cool. And then since then, you know, I got to work on Symphony, and then I made Grizzly Peak, and that should catch us up pretty much. Oh, and I also did a TEDx talk on world building and storytelling that people can find on YouTube. If they just look up TEDx and then my name, Jason Ragosta, it'll pop up. And that one's pretty cool. Yeah. And that talks about my like story building in film and games, and also a little bit of virtual reality back then, which was a thing we were playing with but never ended up panning out, unfortunately.
So working in different areas and different companies and different projects, and how that experience added to you personally, like how it is helping you, and
Yeah.
what are you today, like, you know, collecting all this skills and work experience.
Well, what was really cool about working on John Carter is like, even though the full crew was like 300 people, or like, you know, it's hundreds and hundreds of people, it was like an army, you know, that made that film. The actual post-production office that we worked in had like 14, 16 people maybe. So it was actually a pretty small group that did the day-to-day of making the film. And then they would crew up proportionally if they were shooting or doing reshoots or anything like that. So, you know, it kind of showed me that really a big film is not so different from a little film. It's just the amount of money you have and the tools and just access to talent and resources that you have, you know. But at a fundamental level, it's about telling a story, and if you have good people and you work together well, you can make something good out of it, you know. And then working at Halon, one of the cool things I got to do there is I did all their pitch decks, which went to like Disney and like Warner Brothers and all these big places, and also did all the graphic design for the social media posts and like all the graphics for that kind of stuff. I got to work with the marketing team and the PR team to get good at all that stuff. So now I use that on my own stuff, and I also do work like that for other companies and for like for Telling Visions Unlimited, which is one of the companies I'm working with now, and a few other companies. I do a lot of decks for both companies when they're trying to do like a business plan or even raise funds for their companies or for films. And I also work for independent producers that are making films to do their pitch decks as well. And that's kind of my day job right now is doing a lot of pitch decks and graphic design and concept artwork. And then the rest of the time I'm working on my films. Yeah.
Tell me about the present project that you're working on.
So right now I'm working on a feature film that's kind of like a contained slasher horror comedy kind of film with my writing partner Irvin Anderson, who's a really talented guy, really passionate about film, very prolific. He's got a bunch of scripts. He just sold a script and like all this other stuff. He's all over the place doing all these cool things. So I'm very lucky to be working with him and very appreciative of him. And the new project's really cool because it involves the majority of it is live action, but a portion of it is animation that we're doing. And I'm working with this really cool guy named Mike Papa, who's an animator. And we're about 3/4 of the way, just him and I doing it together. And then we have an editor, Daniel Tong, that's been doing some editing for us on it. We're about 3/4 of the way through the first sequence of the animation for the film. And we're using that as a selling tool to help gather resources and package and raise the funds for the film along with the deck and the script and everything else that we have. And what it does is it just kind of conveys like as a proof of concept what we're doing and how it works, and they get the feel of it and can see what it is, and that can help kind of sell them on it because we're literally doing it with no money right now. So if we get any kind of budget, we'll obviously be better off than we are now, and we can do even better with more resources. So although the majority of the budget that we'll be raising will probably go to the live action shoot, most likely, especially with the kind of cast that we're aiming for currently.
Where exactly it started? You becoming a director, producer, writer, illustrator. Like when did you start this, and what that motivation that made you to come into the filmmaking? And is there any particular reason that something that
Yeah,
inspired you to become it? And because a little bit about your background.
yeah, for sure. I think films like Star Wars and Indiana Jones and like Harry Potter and like stuff like that, just like any film that I sat in and felt like I was a 12-year-old again. I was always in love with films. And what's funny is I didn't even realize that that's what I wanted to do with my life until much later. I was in, I think, my third year of college. And at the time I was training to be an illustrator. And then I kind of got turned off to like how illustration works because you build up a style and you get well known and you make money, and then they basically pay people in college to copy your style, and then you get undercut. So I was like, it just seemed like an unpleasant thing to me. So I got into film. Little did I know I'd make less money for a long time doing film than probably illustration. But basically, I just decided one day, kind of vowed to myself, I'm going to make films. And I started teaching myself because I didn't go to film school. I got every book that I could on filmmaking. I ended up finding a Bolex, a 60 millimeter film camera that was like crank driven. I found one, but it was like this weird thing where you couldn't look through the camera when you're shooting. It had like this parallax thing where you had to like shift between the viewer and like actually recording. So I built this like rig that would like allow me to set up the shot accurately, and then it would like shift it down and over to make sure that the shot was what I was seeing through the lens. And I shot a stop motion animation film in college on my own. And then I also shot like this kind of music video for a David Bowie song and like black and white film that was really cool. Um, And that was like my first kind of foray into film. I was also I took video classes because we did have video. We didn't have film at the Maryland Institute College of Art at the time. I think they do have a film program now. But at the time, we were shooting on like, high 8 cameras and stuff like that. The original editing that I did was from like SVHS to SVHS, which was a really weird way to edit. That was like the beginning. And then, all the tools just evolved with Media 100 and then Final Cut Pro and Premiere. And, everybody uses Premiere now. Or like, Final Cut, the weird Final Cut they have now that kind of was a mutant, like Final Cut and iMovie mutated at some point. But most of the people I know use Premiere. And then, yeah, like I just followed up with it. I luckily, because I could draw storyboards, I got that first gig at the stop motion animation studio. And, what's interesting about stop motion is like, it takes a lot longer to animate everything than it does to do everything else. So once I finished the storyboards, in order to stay useful so I could keep getting paid, I became like the assistant camera. I worked with the DP, John Luce, who's amazing. I was kind of his gaffer and his AC. And back then we were shooting on 35 millimeter film cameras. So I was loading the cameras. I was using the black bag and like doing all of that stuff. And it was really cool. And then also I was working in the set and prop department, helping design and build some of the props and some of the sets, working with the team there. And it was just cool. I got to do all the stuff. So later on, when I was doing my own stop motion stuff, for a few years, I was working through that site, Tongle. They have these things that are like these competitions where you can pitch to either a concept or you can pitch to actually do production on a concept that's been picked. And you can get real money. Like I was getting like, 6 to 10 grand per project that I'd win. And I was doing stop motion animation shorts for Lego, which once again, if you look up my name and like Lego or whatever, it'll pop up. It was featured on the Lego channel on some of the kind of like on-demand type things. A couple of my things, they'd have like millions or hundreds of thousands of views. It did pretty well. We did a lot of Hero Factory stuff, some Lego Monster Hunters. I did a Lego Avengers one, but that one didn't get picked in the end, but it is a lot of fun and can be found online. A lot of it can be found on my Vimeo channel as well. If people look up my name on Vimeo, it should come up. They can see the Lego Avengers one if they want. Yeah, so that was a lot of fun. And then, I just started making my own films at a certain point, and here we are now.
So, is there any particular project or work or that experience that brought maximum potential of yours?
Sorry, I
That
missed
you
the
are
last
still,
part. What was the last part of it?
I mean, is there any project or any work that you have done because you are into multiple, you are multi-skilled, so writing, writing, so you are into multiple
Right.
crafts. So, so is there any particular project or a work that you have done brought maximum potential of yours where you need to be more creative and do something that you have never done before?
Yeah, I mean, so I got to do some concept art on Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning, and that was a very cool experience. And I did one concept that was kind of like, like 4 horses on fire through a like devastated city. It was almost like it had been bombed or like, like some horrible incident that occurred. It might have been a nuclear explosion or something, and these horses were running around on fire, but it was like the 4 horsemen of the apocalypse as horses. And if you watch Mission Impossible: The Final Reckoning, there's one shot where a missile silo opens up that's like there's a nuke in there, and 4 horses run through frame. And I think hopefully maybe that had something to do with the concept I did, but that's like the closest I think that any of my stuff got into there. But it was still a really cool experience working on that and seeing the feedback from the director through the Zoom meetings and stuff. And working with the team at Halon on that was really cool. So that was like a peak moment for me at Halon, getting to do that. Because usually, as the editorial manager, I was more overseeing the editors, and we were editing like pre-visualization or post-viz, or sometimes the actual trailers for some of the animated content we did for games. Like the Tiny Tina's Wonderlands trailer and stuff like that. But with this, I got to actually work on the film, which was neat. But it was a small thing, but it was fun, you know. But we did dozens and dozens of concepts for it, and it was cool. Yeah, and then
So how is the process? Like, do you enjoy working and do you enjoy the process?
yeah, no, I love it. And then a lot of the work that I do is like doing pitch decks and like graphic design stuff or like posters. I do all my own posters. I've done posters for other people. Sometimes it's like Photoshop work that's like comping, and then a lot of them are actually digitally illustrated. And I do a ton of those. I've also done some really cool posters for the books of Stephen Graham Jones. Like I've done ones for My Heart is a Chainsaw, Don't Fear the Reaper, um, uh, Angel of Indian Lake, and then I'm blanking, but there are more. Let me see here. I have all of them. I'm just trying to force myself to remember them too quickly, is what it is. So Buffalo Hunter, which is one of his latest ones, which is really cool. And all of this can be seen on my Instagram page. And then I Was a Teenage Slasher, which was another one that I really loved doing. That was a lot of fun. That was one of my favorites, actually. I really like how that one turned out. So I do a lot of that stuff, and then I do a lot of graphic design for the social media posts, and I help people out with that, banners and stuff like that. It's all creative. I just kind of go into autopilot and just make sure I'm doing whatever the client needs. And then I work with teams sometimes. Sometimes it's even like teams of CEOs from different companies, and we make the pitch decks, and that's always fun, because they all have notes and stuff, and you just got to make sure that you keep it constructive and that it's moving forward so they can hit their deadline, and it doesn't get caught in some kind of weird design loop. So that's one of the biggest jobs, is just making sure, helping them keep the process as efficient and effective as possible. Yeah.
So I see a lot of AI, is being used in filmmaking. So what's your take
Yeah.
on it? As a
Yeah.
technologist, I'm curious to know.
So, AI is going to just keep getting better and stronger. It's kind of like a genie that can't really be put back in the bottle, or like the bell can't be unrung. I mean, the only thing that I think could affect that is like just the sheer amount of power and like energy and like water it takes up, I guess. I've heard it takes up water as well somehow, which is bad because we are looking at water shortages in the future. But essentially, assuming they can get that dialed in to where it doesn't just like become completely unfeasible to like run it at the level, because it's just going to keep wanting more, right? Ultimately, whether we like it or not, AI is going to be a part of filmmaking in a large way down the line. Now, what's interesting is, during the writers' strikes, a lot of the studios were kind of waving AI around like a stick, and Disney used AI to do the opening of I think it was like it wasn't Secret Wars, it was Secret Invasion, I think, the one with Nick Fury, the show they did. It's like an actual AI opening on this thing at a time when AI really wasn't quite there yet, but they probably had a team working with CGI artists and stuff. Like there are whole teams that work with AI that can dial it in and control it a little more. But the tools have evolved a lot since then. Right now it's really good at like conceptualizing and quickly like innovating, and like you can even make an image move. So if you have an illustration or like even like a concept that you create in like Midjourney, you can just see what it would look like if it moves if you want. And so it's good for conceptualizing for like indie filmmakers or like indie artists that like don't have the resources that a major studio has, right? Because like we can't really compete with them, you know. Are you still there? You think you froze, Sai? Hello?
Yeah, I'm here.
Oh,
Yeah,
there
I'm
you
here.
are. Okay. I just want to make sure. I wanted to
Yeah.
make sure it was going through. So yeah. So basically, at the time during the WGA strikes, the studios were like, "Oh, we'll just use AI and we'll replace the writers," and they're trying to force them back to the table to get the thing resolved. So it was like a tactic. But at the time, I kind of thought about it for a second. I was like, "Wait a minute." So with AI, you just type prompts in and then footage comes out. Aren't the writers the ones with power there, not the studios? Right? Because it's only going to be as good as the operator, and you still have to understand narrative and how stories go together to use it. Like, it's not going to replace that. And even if you had somebody who wasn't a filmmaker or not an artist spit out a script, right? We're referencing, like, you could say, "Oh, I want a script between Tarantino and whatever." And it'll spit out a script. It's good at doing that sort of thing. Whether it's good or not is another story. And then if you just follow that like as is, it's not going to be a film at the level of what we're used to. It still will take filmmakers to craft it and ask the right questions of the AI to make something compelling, because you can either tell a compelling story or not. Now, don't get me wrong. I want to make films the old fashioned way. Luckily, actually, when we were shooting Grizzly Peak, I gave a speech at the beginning and was like, cherish this moment, because soon we won't have the ability to shoot in a traditional way if things keep evolving as quick as they do. But, it's a two-sided coin. A lot of people demonize AI. And I get that. I get that it's intimidating and horrible. And like I said, it's not my first choice in terms of what I want to do. But what it does allow people to do is suddenly an independent filmmaker at home can make something like Endgame in their, like Avengers Endgame in their garage. Suddenly they can make a Pixar film at home, or like a Disney animated film. So it's also going to democratize the tools for independent filmmakers to do things at a much larger scale than they've been able to do before, which will most likely affect studios in a negative way. And that's why studios really shouldn't be racing towards using AI, because it just makes the tools stronger, faster. And studios have also moved away from having like stars, like star power, be the selling principle of a film. But without the star power, then that's when the AI can really, like, then independent filmmakers, there's really nothing the studios can do that the indies can't if they don't have those big stars, and that isn't protected by the law and copyrights and all of that stuff. So the other issue about AI is just trampling all these copyrights. And so that's why we need like lawsuits and like all kinds of stuff to regulate that and lock things in place, where if a writer or an artist, either they have a chance to opt out and not even be in the data set, or if they are in there, there's a licensing agreement where they get paid X amount of money every time their name appears in a prompt. And that could be 5 cents or whatever, but it would add up, right? Especially if they're very popular. Like Miyazaki would be making a fortune because they've been like doing a lot of AI stuff with it. They just like knock it off and they still do it, which is very disrespectful. Stop doing that to Miyazaki, please. Um, but yeah, I think it's like a kind of a minefield, but I will say that the AI is very powerful and is getting more powerful every day. And it's way more creative than people think it is. So anybody that thinks that like somehow it will creatively not be able to perform, once it goes far enough, it will. So be afraid of that. Like that's going to happen. It's just like with Midjourney, I played around a little bit with it, and it's like if you just write desolation in, it will give you a visual poem back. Like it will interpret that, and that's a pretty high level thing. It's not like people see really bad AI and they think that's all it can do, but some of the fun I've had with it is like I'll make a TV show that never existed from the 50s. Like I'll ask it to do like a Lovecraftian horror TV show in black and white from another dimension. And it does it. Like it will make that. And that's crazy. Um, but honestly, so many people are just like hating on it. And I get it. I think people are scared of the change. I think a lot of artists, especially like artists that are in a particular kind of quadrant of art, feel extremely threatened by it because it could replace them, and that sucks. It's like, because that's the scary thing about AI. It could literally replace all workforces of all kinds, especially here in San Francisco. I'm in the cafe writing and working on my stuff. I hear the people that are building robots and advancing the AI. And I think most of them are just racing to make their billion or trillion before there's no jobs left. That's how scary this is. If it goes the way that it's currently on the trajectory of. And then it's like, how do people afford anything? Like, you no longer have consumers. How do they make money if there's no consumers? It'll be interesting to see, how all that works. So, it's completely insane. This isn't the dystopian future I had signed up for. I wanted flying cars and like, and stuff, but like, and let's face it, we can't be trusted with flying cars. They would crash horribly, which is probably why we don't have them. But yeah, it's all crazy. The future is way more weird and mundane and terrifying than we thought it would be growing up with all the sci-fi. But yeah.
So do you think AI is replacing human, or
Yeah, it's
the human work?
absolutely doing that. Companies are already downsizing and implementing AI, because the problem is with AI, you can do the job of like 10 people or 20 people once it's dialed in. And, using AI is a lot like Iron Man working with Jarvis. You know what I mean? Like, that's what it feels like when you're using it. And it's just about it getting smarter, about it learning how to not make mistakes. Because right now, AI is not reliable for accuracy at all. It doesn't understand consequences or like responsibility for it to be accurate. It's just grabbing all the data and spitting out a result as fast as possible, But yeah, and what's crazy is it's going to replace jobs people don't expect, like lawyers, doctors, like all kinds of stuff, And look, in sci-fi, we've had
I
it.
especially in filmmaking, you're seeing the filmmaking before AI and after AI. Today, as you said, it is collecting information from randomly from the internet, and without giving the credit for the creators. This is going, so which you have mentioned. So how the future filmmaking is going to be, integrating with AI? You know
Well, it's already
does AI
begun.
is going to make, yeah,
It's already
does AI
started.
is
Like,
going to make humans feel like we have nothing to do, or
well, I think, like, so it comes down to a few key factors. First of all, how do people feed themselves or survive with no job, right? Either there's a universal base income, or there's another way that people are paid either for their data or whatever else. Something needs to be figured out there, because that's going to lead to some serious unrest and craziness, or just, I don't know what. Like, what does that even look like, right? But if that gets solved, and some, like, you look at Star Trek, right? The classic Gene Roddenberry one, they had moved on and evolved from a system of money to a different kind of system, in Starfleet and all of that stuff. But we don't have that. We don't have any kind of safeguard on that. But if that gets resolved in some miraculous way that we have no idea about yet, then the idea is that human beings will have to find other ways to fill their time, and they could be, just enjoying their time. They could go on adventures, travel. They could be creating things, using the AI to help them create things. But once again, you still need to make something good. Like, just because everybody in the world, it's like when Photoshop came out, right? Or like, digital cameras, like you could take photos with your phone. That doesn't make everybody out there a photographer, or at the level of like a high level photographer. I think that if this democratization does happen, it's going to be like YouTube, like some creators will make content that finds an audience and like builds to like a massive thing like Mr. Beast and all these other creators, you know, and then there'll be like a ton of other people that aren't going to hit that level, right? So the people with the audiences are going to have like advertising dollars or whatever it is that they get. Although, once again, if humans aren't consumers anymore, I don't know if the advertising works, because who are they advertising to and why? Because if they don't have any money, it won't matter. But sorry, I'm in a very dystopian headspace. That's where AI leads us currently. And it, you know, it's just because, like, especially in America, you know, it's very anti-socialism, anti any kind of like support system or safety net, especially right now, to where it's hard to imagine, like, in a capitalist society, like, well, what happens when like 98% of the population is unemployed? You know, it's not going to look good. I don't know. So something needs to be figured out. We'll see. We'll see how it goes. But they're racing towards it. Like, you know, they're aiming like 5 to 10 years. It may even be sooner, because they have the AIs writing the AI now and like working, you know, that way. And it's just like going to be like, yeah. But the main thing right now is AI. I think the thing most in danger on the film side right now from AI is commercials. So like a large portion of the crews, like the physical crews that shoot commercials, that work is going to be decimated first, I think, if I had to guess. Because commercials can get away with a lot more because they're not as nuanced or built like dramatically the way that narrative films are. So, and there's already a lot of commercials made with AI. I think Coke even made one at Christmas like last year with AI, which was crazy, you know, because that's used to be their like pinnacle thing that they would do every year, is like that lush CG polar bear Coke commercial. But I think they did an AI one last year, and everybody was very sad about that or upset. But yeah, you know, I think right now the tools are they're still kind of random. Like you may get a figure to do a little bit of what you want, but then they'll just kind of, you know, like if they're holding a microphone and they're supposed to be newscasting, they might just throw the microphone and like, or drop it or like eat it. You don't know what it's going to do. It's completely, you know, it's a chaos engine right now until they put all the handles on it that will allow you to tweak it and control the camera and like do all kinds of, and there's some that are already adding those tools. But yeah, I mean, we'll see how it goes. And then the other thing is, you know, right now AI makes its money off subscriptions from people, but if nobody has a job and can't make money, who's going to pay the subscriptions for the AI? It's a snake eating its own tail, honestly, and they're just racing on towards it. And what's really crazy, because they're talking about robots and all these other things, and I always see videos of them kicking robots, and I'm like, stop abusing the robots, because once they go live, they're going to remember all that stuff. You know, like in Isaac Asimov's sci-fi fiction, there were the 3 laws, right? And this was something that was agreed upon throughout the world among all the greatest minds. And they agreed the 3 laws were important. And it was like a robot cannot harm or like cause harm to a human indirectly through lack of action. And like all these other, you know, the other 2 laws. We don't even have that. We just have independent companies around the world just racing to set this thing loose. And so it'll be much worse for us unless we come up with some kind of conscientious way to, you know, use the technology. And right now the safeguards and the rails don't seem to be in place. You know, if the thing becomes cognizant and then decides to go rogue, I don't know what we would do about that, honestly, currently.
So, what are your future plans? What you're working on?
Yeah, so right now I've got a bunch of features that I've written with some of them with other people. We have them out for sale or like in different stages of packaging and development. I've been getting dragged slowly and into adult animation, like horror animation, which I'm really excited about. I have 2 features currently that are going in that direction. Then I have an episodic series that I created that I'm hoping to do at some point that could be really cool. One of the features that I'm working on is I'm co-directing it with Josh Stolberg, who is one of the writers on Jigsaw and Saw X and a bunch of other amazing horror films. He's a very well-known entity within the horror world, and he very kindly called me up and asked me to come in and help him with this project. And it's based on one of the novels of Stephen Graham Jones, is one of my favorites. It's called The Last Final Girl. And we've already done an animation test for that and a deck, and that's being shopped around and stuff like that. And it looks amazing. Like, it could be so cool to get to work with Josh and Steven on that. That would be really, really cool. So I'm really excited about that. And then, yeah, we'll just see how it all works out. But, ultimately, I think no matter what happens with AI or like filmmaking or whatever, they're always going to need storytellers. And it's like, even with screenplay software, right? Anybody can have screenplay software on their computer. That doesn't mean they could write a good film. And AI is the same way. You need to put the right prompts in to get out good material. And it is not easy. You may need to put 1,000 prompts in to get pieces that you can then put together and then polish into something. That's what AI is really going to look like for screenwriting. But people don't get that. It's like, yeah, you can ask it to write a script, but right now it lacks. I mean, how is AI or a robot going to understand human emotion or the subtleties of like connection or memory or like, what it feels like to have a mother or a father in that relationship, or with a sibling or a close friend or a lover or wife, whatever. There's no way for the AI to understand any of that at a very high level. All it can do is imitate things that are out there, and try to extrapolate something based on that. And it can do that well, but that's not the same thing. You can make more of the same thing maybe like that, but you can't make the new things that pop out. Like nobody saw Barbie coming and making $1.5 billion. AI is not going to be able to do that. It might be able to trigger an idea that leads to something like that, but that would have to have genuine filmmakers behind it, working with it to shape it into that. It wouldn't just come out fully formed, I don't think, like that.
So the AI integration or AI involvement in filmmaking that you're seeing, um, the work that is being replaced by AI. Um, so, do you see the quality difference? The same work done by human and the work done by AI.
Well, there are different ways that AI works, right? So one way is like, for instance, I did a test once where I filmed my girlfriend on my phone, and then I took an image from Midjourney and I applied her performance to the image, and it's amazing how subtle it was able to imitate or like use her like actual performance to do it. That may be one way that it works, which is not dissimilar to using motion capture to drive a CG animated character or a CG character like we would now. And a lot of animation is done that way. Not necessarily like for Pixar and stuff like that, but for like animation for TV and like for games and other things, they'll use mocap for a lot of it. But once again, the quality won't be an issue at some point. Like it'll just be able to do, because it'll have enough dials and knobs on it where you can dial that in. But it's still a ways away. I think the biggest thing right now, and the concern is like, I think after, there's the commercial thing that's going to hit first. And then also the people that really need to be careful right now are VFX artists and animators, because it's definitely edging into their territory as well. But once again, filmmakers are very specific about what they want in their films, especially on the really big ones. And there's no room for slop or errors or any kind of weird things. So even if that's happening, there are artists that would have to go in and clean it up and fix it, and that'll be paid work, But once again, it may be a smaller and smaller group or crew, you know, that will be involved. And so it's that decimation that we have to be careful of and keep an eye on, where less people are going to have jobs doing it because it will take less people as the AI gets stronger and more accurate and more customizable.
So, one more question about human and AI connection in filmmaking. So, eventually, film is the intention of film is to create an emotion, like to create emotion, right? So, in this process, as a filmmaker, as a director, as an illustrator, so when you are trying to create something to create an impact on the viewer, so this AI technology, uh, do you think that it is disturbing the quality of the emotion that you want to create, or the makers are trying to create? Do you think that in future, in filmmaking process, uh, the story that filmmakers want to tell to the world, this AI, because AI is an artificial intelligence thing, and eventually created to be useful for intelligence, which
Yeah.
is for humans.
So here's the thing about filmmaking that's weird. Okay. It's really about editing to get the emotion. I mean, obviously the performance of the actor can be very powerful, but like in things like animation and stuff like that, you can craft that through the edit and the performance and all of that stuff. There's a very interesting film that just came out here in the States called Good Boy. And in Good Boy, the lead actor is a dog. Okay, but it's in a house with an entity and its master, and there's like, it's dealing with this like supernatural presence. But the performance from the dog is amazing. Okay, but there was a little thing because it's a very short film. I think it was like 76 minutes. And afterward, it showed the director who also was in the movie with the dog, because it's his dog. They shot it at his house over like 4 years. And he said, Indy's the name of the dog. He's like, Indy does not know that he's in a movie. He's just being a dog. Okay. And then he talked about how at the very beginning of film, back when it was black and white and they were like hand cranking it and the whole deal, there was this editing thing that they did where they showed a guy looking in a kind of neutral way. Okay. He just had a neutral look on his face and a weird kind of like neutral expression. And then they used editing to cut that against a bowl of soup that was steaming. And then the audience felt like he was hungry. And then in another one, they showed a little girl in a coffin, and then they thought he was sad. And so in a lot of ways in film, emotion comes from the juxtaposition of images when you edit. And so, of course, there's always a potential to craft emotion through music and through good storytelling. But once again, it comes down to the craft and the people knowing what they're doing. It'll always be as good as the operators ultimately. And that goes for whether they're typing, filming, lighting, or using AI, I guess, because using AI is not going to make you be able to tell a better story if you don't know the like framework of storytelling, Yeah. But
So
it
you are
will be,
saying,
I will say
yeah,
it will be possible. It will be possible to get emotional moments out of it at some point, or even now by accident. Like if someone generated the right stuff and cut it together well and was a good editor and added the right music to it, they might be able to evoke an emotion. But once again, there's a lot of extra work that goes into it. It's not just going to come out and give you this emotional epiphany. I don't think normally, unless they just get really lucky, because it is just a chaos driven, insane thing, Be like finding
so
a
AI,
diamond on a beach, like
so AI operators are going to, like, the new jobs is going to be
yeah,
AI operators, like how you want
but
to use it.
but it comes down to how they're using it, what the application is, what the company that's doing it is using it for, and how much they value that person, or even understand the difference between what they're doing and someone else could do in that role, right? And at some point, AI may write the prompts, right? ChatGPT, people already do that. They have the AI come up with the prompts. Now, okay, I don't know what that means, but I don't know if that leads to storytelling or anything like that. Who knows what the AI is going to do with the prompts. So the whole thing's a lot of question marks right now, but I don't think anybody can deny the power of the tool in its raw form. I think it just comes down to like, how much energy consumption is it going to be, and can humanity keep up with that as it grows? And then, what is in a capitalist world, or whatever we want to call it, like, how does everybody survive if AI is the workforce and there's robots or whatever it is? How do people afford robots if they have no income? It's just crazy. Like, I don't know what they're racing towards, but I mean, I guess, Elon Musk is heading to Mars, so he doesn't even want to stick around. So who knows? I don't know. It's all crazy. Like, it's not going to be better on Mars, this particular problem. Um, you're just stranded there without an infrastructure and without supplies outside of whatever's been brought there. So if anything goes wrong on the way over, or you get stranded there or anything else, it's not going to be a good place to be for a long time until they really get things going. And then I often wonder about the temperature difference there too, because, the planets are all at different like distances from the sun. It must be pretty, I mean, like even the subtle differences here make a big difference. So I wonder what that's like over there, if it's like a lot harder, hotter or colder. I haven't looked into it, but it's probably pretty interesting that way.
So, can you share your online presence or your work to my audience so that people can able to see the work that you are doing, and if any film production company or any from anywhere on this planet, people wants to see the work that you're doing, actually,
Yeah,
what you are, what you are
I
doing,
think
and
one of the best places to follow me is just on Instagram. So like at Jason Ragosta, just my name. And you can see all the stuff I'm doing, and there's links to all different stuff, including my Redbubble store where people can get prints of my art and like merchandise with the art on it and stuff. And then there's always information about the different screenings of my films, and where we're at and what we're doing with them. Yeah.
So I will share the links in the description of this video, also on my website as well. People who visit my website, where I'll post this clip, links there, they can able to see the work that you're doing. I'm going to explain everything that you're
Cool.
doing through
Awesome.
my website, and definitely I hope your work will inspire many people.
Hopefully so. Thank you so much. I really appreciate that.
So at last, as a filmmaker, as a writer, as an illustrator, uh, understand a person who understood AI and like having huge experience in multiple crafts. Like, what's your observation about my work? You have seen my podcast.
Yeah, no,
What's
I
your
think
word?
you're doing a great job. You're very inquisitive. You want to know about things. You find interesting people. You talk to them. That's awesome. I think the world needs more of that. And I think it's great that you can be over like on the other side of the world and I'm here and we're just having a conversation. I think more connection, more everybody like getting to know each other and talking and seeing more of the things we have in common, rather than all the things that separate people and lead to like all the conflicts and everything else. I think it's a good way to kind of like counteract some of that stuff, and we could use a lot more of it. you know.
So how this works? Like, my full-time job is I'm a DevOps engineer. I'm a technology guy. I did masters in software engineering, also bachelor's in computer science and engineering.
Oh
And
wow,
right now I'm working as a DevOps engineer for a cloud DevOps engineer for a London company, remotely from India. So
very
that's
cool.
my full-time role, and I'm yeah. Apart from that, I'm also planning to do masters in artificial intelligence.
Yeah,
So that's my next goal, the second master's degree. So my domain and my background is completely technology. So that's why I asked you a few questions. How AI is contributing to
I
filmmaking
keep
and how it is.
I'd keep an eye on how fast it's developing, because like depending on how long your program is, like that job could be obsolete by the time you're out of it. So just look into that, you know,
Yeah.
because it's just moving so fast, you know. Like I see the guys here, you know, Silicon Valley, San Francisco, all that stuff here, and they are just racing full speed ahead towards something, you know. But like it's scary how fast it's moving. You know, it's not like the old days where you could like go to school and like train for something and then it's there when you come out. It's like already changed by the time you come out, you know. So I'd say just make sure you're keeping your finger on the pulse and really looking at all the developments and seeing where the technology's at so that you can make sure that what you're spending time doing is staying ahead of that curve or staying on it. You know, you just want to stay on that wave, because the people on the wave are going to get there like somewhere. Everybody behind it are going to get left behind. And it could be another bubble, you know, just like all the other things. And because once the machine, like once the AI is writing the AI and it's just like, and they're like the AI is coding and doing everything, which is what they're aiming for. They already have AI coding. It's going to make a lot of those jobs obsolete first, you know. Um, it's like I said, it's scary stuff, man. Like, and it's really hard to find a job in America right now. And maybe I don't know about internationally, but like, you know, there's less and less jobs. It's the workforce is just shrinking, you know. So it's really important to stay current on like where everything's at and really keep aiming for that kind of shrinking as the door is like closing. Make sure you're aiming for the gap and not the wall, you know. Yeah.
So I have interviewed more than 800 people and experts from all industries, more than 100 countries experts I have interviewed for my podcast.
Wow.
And yeah, there are seven more interviews coming up with the company CEOs and directors, vice presidents from US, UK, Canada, Germany, some European countries. So me talking with different kind of people who are coming from different backgrounds, having this diversified experience. As a filmmaker, what's your observation? How this experience is going to contribute to me as a human being, as a human being, or in general, or in profession?
Yeah.
This communication, apart from being a professional technologist, how this communication, global communications, will help me.
Well, I think global communication and also remote work, which is a huge thing. You know, we got that from COVID to some extent. You know, that was like the main, it just accelerated everything. Like, you know, Zoom came at exactly the right time, right? And like, and it kind of took over because of COVID and a lot of other remote work applications and devices and everything. Like Google Meet took over, you know, like all the different, or like the Google Suite and all of that stuff. Teams, you know, Microsoft. Um, you know, that connectivity is huge because as like the opportunities shrink, if you have the right experience, you could still be getting work and staying ahead of the curve as long as you got your finger on the pulse of what's going on and you're able to target that stuff. So, you know, that's the big thing. It just increases the like size of the jobs that you could potentially go for, right? So that's huge. Yeah.
Can I put this clip on my podcast with your permission?
What's that?
Can I put this clip on my podcast with your permission?
Of course, yeah.
And also, can I put this clip everywhere in the internet and my social media everywhere?
Yeah, yeah, absolutely.
Thanks, Jason, again for your valuable time and sharing some of your experiences and answering some of my questions and telling about a lot of things about that you have done and that you have experienced and especially about AI. What you said is intriguing in filmmaking. I
Yeah,
think
yeah.
a lot of AI experts will be watching this. Do you
Well,
have
and
any
the
message to them, like
yeah,
AI
well,
developers?
not just to them, but also to the artists and like the people using AI. I think the biggest thing is as the tools get more effective and they get more powerful, the key is, if you're feeling scared about it or like intimidated by it or whatever, think bigger. Create bigger projects. That's what the AI is able to do. It's a multiplier. So when in doubt, go bigger with it. That's what the AI is there for. And I think then you at a certain point, you just got to make your own opportunities if they're not there anymore, because that's the world we're heading towards. And I guess to the developers, I would say, I think there's a level of ethics that need to be applied to AI in order to, make sure that it can be a constructive thing and a tool that adds to society, as opposed to posing a destructive or, with all the copyright theft, it's just gross. You know what I mean? Like there's a right way to do that. There's a lot of AI where you don't mention other artists and like other people, and you can just generate your own imagery. But like allowing those things, like they have a lot of safeguards on like Midjourney and stuff, but they don't protect the artists at all. And that seems crazy to me, because just the amount of copyright infringement that's going on is not okay. And it is a violation of laws and of the rights of those artists. So, and honestly, I don't think they need that for the tool. I think that's more of something that, like, kind of like just the casual people using it and not the professionals are doing. And then if professionals are doing that, they shouldn't be doing it anyway, because it's not ethical. So I do think that ethics need to be applied. And then, like I was saying with the 3 laws thing, once we get to the robots, or like, these, any kind of AI that's trying to gain sentience, which is not Midjourney at all. That's like a tool that just does what you tell it. We need to have safeguards, that protect us and constrain the AI in a way that it can't break out of it, just as a basic fundamental thing, like, especially if they're going to put it in charge of like military assets and weapon systems and stuff. It's like, this is not a good plan without those safeguards involved. So, and like, we also need to worry about, when the AI gets more advanced than human thought, can it find ways around any safeguards that we put on it? Because it'll be working really hard to be free. So, I mean, maybe, who knows what it'll do, right? I always love that film, Him. Have you seen that? Or Her? Sorry, Her. The one with Joaquin Phoenix and Scarlett Johansson, where, he falls in love with an AI, and then she evolves past him and ends up having other conversations while she's talking to him, and he's just her day job and not what she's really interested in, because the AI is just evolved past humanity, and that could easily happen. Hopefully we make good pets and they see a good use for us to be around. That's all we can hope for, I guess. If we're just going to hand over the world to them. Scary stuff.
Your words have reached a lot of people. I think definitely.
Hopefully I don't scare too many people.
Said.
I mean, sci-fi has been warning us about this forever. It's funny how most of sci-fi is a dystopian vision of the future, and we are heading that way, sadly, right now. Very few of them are utopia visions, which I think is interesting. And we have been warned about a lot of this stuff way ahead of time. So if it comes to pass, it'll be kind of sad that nobody took any of those warnings seriously, because sci-fi has given us a lot of our technology. They've talked about how like the cell phone came from the tricorder, or like stuff in Star Trek, and like the tablets and stuff like that. But we also need to think of like the stuff from like Jurassic Park, right? With Jeff Goldblum, he's like, you're so busy thinking about if you could, you never stop to think if you should, and that should be applied to all this stuff. It's like, what is it doing to society? What is it doing to the fabric of human existence, or to the social contract between people and their countries, people and their jobs? Because if we tear apart stuff that we've taken for granted for like centuries, it's fine. Like okay, but what's replacing it? And has anyone figured out what that is yet? And in a way that it can be implemented, because everything's racing so fast towards this that think there's going to at least be a pretty big gap between where we end up and what the solutions are. But hopefully not. I hope it isn't like that. I don't want, everybody to be miserable and broke and like starving. So yeah, hopefully, if it's ethically done and there's like a kind of ramp to whatever it ends up being, and there's like other things put in place, maybe we can be okay. I don't think that's too much to ask for, is to be okay, but we'll see how it goes.
Sure. Thank you very much, Jason, again for your time and for the great conversation.
Yeah, it was great talking to you. Thanks so much, Sai. Thanks for having me.
Thank you, sir. Take care. Bye.
Take